Wake up! Wake up! Pay attention!
You gotta really love comic books. I mean, you gotta love the medium to some degree.
None of the terms have sort of settled. I mean, even the word comics is a misnomer.
Well, a lot of people I know just have bad taste, according to my definition of good taste and bad taste.
I think a lot of media guns are really kind of almost eroticized.
So for me, I developed a style that I think is as minimal as possible. It's extremely minimal. It's simple. It's straightforward, and the work is usually, the content is usually very angry and bitter and cynical. I see myself as a bullshit detector, and I think it's my job to, and I think it's the job really of all cartoonists, but especially a political cartoonist, to look at society and say, okay, this thing is weird, something here is not like the other, and we have to do, and I want you to think about that. Like, here, look at this, isn't this strange?
I've always strived to at least be original, if nothing else. My style's not that shocking. I don't really emulate anybody intentionally. I am still trying to draw from my own well, so to speak, with, I have influences and people that I study, like Will Eisner, Brian Bolland, Frank Miller, and these people are, are my heroes. I look up to them, but I don't want to draw. I don't want to be a guy that when you open up my work, you go, oh, is this Frank Miller? Oh, no, that's some other guy drawn like Frank Miller. Because I think then you immediately have failed in your pursuit of being an artist. If you look like somebody else, then you're hiding.
As long as I get excited about stuff, then my work can hopefully stay exciting. And I get through periods of just being completely bored with everything, and I'll have to, just go out for walks and start drawing pictures of stop signs and things. But every once in a while I just get completely excited, and I get a feeling like there's too much to draw, and I'm never going to be able to do even close to as many stories as I want to put out.
Comic books are very close to movies, to me anyway. Like Orson Welles a lot, and Alfred Hitchcock, and David Lynch. So I mean, I try to feed myself that way. But when I do read, I seem to pick things that I like from books that I read. Like the Brothers Karamazov, that was like a big influence on me. Like when I was doing the second issue of Popcorn War, there's a character in there that is very much like a character in that book. I don't really read a lot of other comic books, which is kind of bad, I guess. I should, but I guess mostly my inspiration comes from other sources.
In comics and in illustration and in the work I do, I want to have a reason to do it. I don't know, maybe it's my parents taught me that way, or just the environment I grew up in, and, with the Vietnam War and all. I just feel like if I'm going to put this much time and energy into something, I want it to be about something that matters to me. And as it happens, that's a very broad spectrum. And what form it takes is also broad. Let's say humor, or talking about sexual issues, or relationships for that matter. I mean, the human condition is as political in my book as anything else that I might talk about. And so it's really just looking to find things to address in my work that I would be able to put some oomph behind and care about enough to put in all the labor that goes on in making a comic strip.
Come on.
The reason I believe that comic books in general get censorship more than other mediums is because fundamentally we have adopted the idea as a culture almost that ultimately these are for children. We believe that no matter what it is you're writing about, if you draw a picture with it, it's for a child.
Clearly there's something about the way that the brain responds to these simple graphic images with little balloons that infuriates people in a way that the same exact thought expressed in in written form, in prose, or in films just doesn't have the same impact.
I just got through drawing a series where I had a character literally disembowel somebody and choke him with his own guts. And I drew that in great detail and had a good time. It was fun. Because ultimately it's just a drawing. Who cares? It's a drawing. It's a little scratching on paper with India ink and pencil. It's not going to hurt anybody. And that was fine. That was allowed. But the thing can't smoke his cigar. You can blow this guy's head off, but you can't show a penis. It's like, I don't know. There's something to be very strange about that. Vertigo comics like Transmetropolitan, I have to be very specific about what nudity I'm allowed to show. I can't show pubic hair, but I can show somebody's head exploding.
I've experienced censorship in my own work in terms of, say, having something rejected, or even in the final hour, where it was sort of like they accepted a piece, and then somewhere along the line, somebody was worried that they were going to get a letter about it, or or an editor didn't like it. It usually is sexual subject matter. The most extreme example that I have experienced was through another artist, Mike Diana. He was doing a fanzine, just self-publishing, in fact, like photocopying it at work, and foolishly left his originals on the copy machine, and they were turned over to the police. He did a lot of fairly horrible sexual imagery, rape, incest, images of Jesus on a cross with an erection. Curiously, of course, because he was doing it in comics, it especially raised the ire of people in Florida, where he lived. And there was an obscenity trial, and I was called down to be an expert comic art witness. And it was, unfortunately, it seemed like the verdict had already been agreed before I got down there. He ended up losing the case, and was put in jail for a while, was basically under kind of house arrest. He wasn't allowed to draw anything obscene at home for his own use, whatever that may mean, and was subject to house searches whenever they wanted.
It's like I do a weekly column for my syndicate, and that column is very strident and hard-hitting, and some weeks hits the same exact notes as my cartoon because they go to different papers. And the reaction to the column is just never as intense. You don't get death threats as the result of a column, even though it'll say the same thing as it does in a cartoon.
It's almost as if you're being un-American by exercising your American right to speak your mind. If you have an unpopular point of view, then it's pretty sure that you're going to be drowned out. People are going to make an effort to make sure that the party line is always towed.
So there's more hate mail now. Most of it's email. There's death threats. When you do a cartoon that's particularly bad, you'll get phone calls. I have some of them saved on my voicemail right now from people who are threatening to come here and kill me. There's just people who are insane, and that's how it is. I mean, it would never. I've read some really offensive crap in the media over the years, and it never occurred to me to ever pick up the phone or email the person and say, I hate you and wish you were dead. But there are apparently hundreds of people, all of whom who should be imprisoned, who think that that is a valid method of discourse. I mean, it's one thing to say, look, your cartoon sucks ass, you were wrong, you were unfair, it was offensive. Great, that's all within the paradigm of acceptable discussion. But when you start getting into calling up people's editors and demanding that they be fired, threatening to vandalize their house, threatening to murder them, obviously it goes too far.
These days I feel as though there's, we're sort of coming up on a new period of censorship. I mean, it's certainly happening already with the message coming from the president and John Ashcroft and the government that you have to sort of watch what you do and what you say, because you sort of every other thing is aiding the terrorists, and that's going to have a probably fairly large effect on censorship.
In the aftermath of September 11th, there's a huge right-wing power grab to try to eliminate civil rights and First Amendment freedoms. And so what's happening is they're trying to shut down the left and the opposition to Bush. And so I have come into fire, and I'm not going to change. Like, fuck them. And I'll talk about whatever the hell I want, whenever I want. So, and that's the job. That is being an editorial cartoonist. If you don't do that, if you don't feel that way, you're not an editorial cartoonist.
And you call me a jerk drawing a cartoon like that? Sure, he's mocking widows.
No,
did you see the cartoon?
You didn't read that. I certainly
I read it. I read it. It's a ridiculous cartoon.
Hey, listen, if you're reading my cartoons the way you read the Bible, I don't think we can take you too seriously on this subject.
Feel kind of guilty about that I don't really know anything about politics, but I just, it's like, you know, it's like I always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and I never did that either. But yeah, with politics, it's like I never really gotten into it. I usually end up voting for, you know, the person that I just kind of feel better about, not necessarily one that I'm very informed on. So yeah, I guess, yeah, no, not really. I mean, it doesn't come across in my comics at all. It's like total fantasy. I don't really try to push any beliefs that I might have. And
especially when I did graffiti, I was much more kind of anti-everything, and I'm still kind of angry at ridiculous concepts. Like, I'm always kind of mad that I have to pay rent and things, because I'll get a commercial job and I'll be like, you know, doing coloring on a Britney Spears cartoon or something, and I'll just start thinking about how I could be drawing my own thing just then, and how completely unhelpful to the world the Britney Spears cartoon will be. It's always important to have something to say, I think, in your work. And I think getting mad is a good part of that, but at the same time, a lot of the things that really irritate me just aren't even worth the ink, you know.
How can you look at the news every day and not be angry? I mean, if you're not angry, you're dead, right? You're asleep. There's no way that you can't, it just doesn't make any sense to me that people could not be angry. So it's kind of funny when people say, well, why are you such an angry guy? I'm like, why are you not an angry person? It's like, here we're living under a president who is a thief. He stole the presidency. He used a judicial coup d'etat. I'm ashamed of myself for not having gone out into the streets in December of 2000 and rioted. We should have. As a country, we fell down on the job. We let our democracy be stolen from us, okay? That's just one small example.
For myself, I strive to entertain. I always believe that when you start to preach to somebody, they really sense it. It's pretty easy to pick up on it. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian family, and my family still is, my brother's a preacher still, and I disagree with a lot of what he believes about God and about the way to approach the world, but you know, so I'm really sensitive to if I'm getting preached to. It's taken a long time to kind of undo a lot of that dogma.
The biggest accomplishment of my career is probably starting World War III Illustrated with my friend Seth Bachman, because it's still going on after 22 years, and that it's created a home for a lot of other artists to get their work published, and it's a way of creating sort of a microcosm of the society that we talk about wanting to live in. And so it seems like the biggest action in terms of saying, you know, like, I'm going to apply my work in a way that is really an action, because a lot of times I feel like, you know, I'm doing these drawings, these supposedly political drawings, and I can't help but wonder whether it has any effect or means much of anything in terms of, you know, really changing anything.
You know, for the most part, cartoons don't change anything. The most that you can hope for, 99% of the time, is that one or two people read one of your cartoons and say, you know, I'm gonna, I never thought about that before. That guy's got a good point. I'm gonna look into that. And that's, I mean, you could say that's change, and I wouldn't argue with you. It is.